Hello, welcome to this alternate channel, Anti-War. And I have some wine. Lindeman's been 40. I usually drink it with lunch, but today I'll just drink water with lunch since I'm drinking now. Got in a little Diamore snifter glass. This is 2017 bottling of this wine. They had a really good sale. It's a green bottle. Really good sale on it at Mathern's. This is the last of the batch. Okay. It's dark purplish, reddish purple, dark reddish purple. It's really more purple than red. Let's see. I want to get a good map. So the aroma, it's not too sweet. It's like red grape skins. This is from Australia, by the way, the Commonwealth of Australia. It's rich. I mean, it's 13. What is it? 13.5. Ooh. Yes. Ronnie S. Hey, Ron. Hey, Ronnie S. Should have done it on StreamYard, huh? So you can join, but I forgot. It's you did pick up some water. It's just Merlot. It's kind of mellow. The Cabernet Sauvignon is kind of chewier, and they're a little heavier and meatier, and I prefer Merlot. But the quality's the same across the board with this company. They're all good, so it's a personal preference issue. I like how some people say, well, I don't like that style, so it's bad. Real open-minded. Like the lady across the street. She said, I go out to drink. I would go out to dinner with some of my friends, and these women will order, what's the real popular one? It's the rosé color. I would have liked to join the Syria convo, but I'm at work anyway. Oh, well, I'll be sure to listen to the playback later. Well, that's understandable if you're at work. I'm off today. The White Zinfandel, that's it, White Zinfandel. Very popular style. She says, when my friends order it, I'm embarrassed. She said, White Zinfandel is for people that don't know how to drink wine. I didn't say a word. I was just thinking, wow, it's like the ultimate wine snob statement. A style of wine for people who don't know how to drink wine. I'm pretty sure those women that order that know how to drink it. You know, they just go like, oh yeah, it's really good. All right, so I know other people that are the same snobby way with wine, like I've talked to them, some I worked with before. Oh, and I just hate Moscato. It's such a horrible style. I just won't touch it. Well, if you don't like it, don't drink it. But their attitude is those people that drink Moscato. You know, those type of people. Yeah, really, it's a style that's popular all over the world, but you don't like it, so it's bad. And she's embarrassed of it. The lady across the street is embarrassed of White Zinfandel. I do a lot of beer reviews and wine reviews and liquor, mostly beer. You know this channel. The main channel is mostly beer, right? I have never been embarrassed of a style. I've ridiculed some styles and said bad things, or I might say I don't like a style, but I've never said, well, since I don't like it, it's bad. It'd be like saying, well, I don't like butter beans, so butter beans are bad. They're bad because I don't like them. That's a very self-centered viewpoint. It kind of reminds me of that television show. What was it with Kirk Cameron? You remember in Tracy Gold? What was the name of that? I never watched it really. It was on ABC in the 80s. And he was saying, one time he was watching TV and his mother said, "What's going on?" He said, "It's on." She said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The TV is on and I'm not watching it." In other words, he turned it on. He didn't happen to be watching it. And he was shocked that it was the shows were playing because he was so self-centered in his mind. Television only worked when he turned it on. Like wouldn't be on the air any other time. And that was kind of like his character. Like he thought the world revolved around him. And I think people that make those statements think that because you just make these overarching statements, right? I don't like hazy IPAs, so they're bad. I don't particularly like hazy IPAs, the New England style, those kind of things. I don't like them. Okay, I just don't like them. I mean, they taste good. They're okay. They're quality. I just don't like the style. But have you ever heard me get on internet and say, "Well, I don't like the style, so anybody that drinks it, I'm embarrassed, and it looks terrible, and it's trash, garbage, hardware." I'm just saying it's not for me. And then I had people come at me and say, "You don't know, that's the world's changing. That's the new thing." And I said, "Well, okay, fine. I don't like it. I'm not saying it's a bad style, and I'm giving it a score. I try to be fair. Of course, your bias could affect it and all that. But I remember starting July 1st, 2019, I stopped responding to those kind of comments. Let me tell you what you need to do. And I'm like, who are you? You have a fake name and you don't show your face. Well, I can't do that. And I was like, okay, well then get lost. Bye. I got an idea, scram, right? I mean, that's fair. I say things, I have opinions, but I also use my real face and my real name. No, not on anti-war. Couldn't use my real name twice. I mean, I could just change it up a little bit, but oh yeah, I used to. But I came up with that title, anti-war. I just like the way it sounded, It's bizarre. Well, this is a very good wine. If you like wine, people would tell me, well, it gives me headaches. I never got headaches from a wine, ever. And I have a friend, he said, American wine just gives him a headache, terrible headache. But he went to Portugal and never got a headache. But he's very susceptible to those bad migraine headaches. Since I've known him when I was in 11th grade, no, I was in 12th, he was in 11th. He always get these headaches. Okay, people are susceptible to that. I understand it. I'm saying in my case, I never got it. They say Budweiser gives them a bad headache. I understand that. And I know many people that have that nasty, dirty, they call it a nasty headache and a dirty hangover from Budweiser. I haven't ever noticed that. If I did, I'd say, yeah, it does that. Okay, but yeah, so it's an A. I mean, this is in the A, like 93 out of 100. It's an A wine. It's about $4.99 a bottle. You say, well, that's so cheap. I know it's so cheap, but I'm being so honest. I got it on sale for $2.99. They had a major sale, and they were selling it like insanity. And the store manager told me, he said, we sell this stuff like crazy. He said, it's really good wine. He's not a drinker. He said, I don't really drink beer, wine, liquor. He'll sample it like when companies are trying stuff out. But he'll kind of say, I'm not a good judge, really, because I don't drink. He drinks like Coke Zero or something. So, but he'll say that. But he doesn't have to like it because the customers love it. They sell Lindemans, like they have this huge display area and they just buying it. It doesn't end. It does not end. So for somebody to get on there and talk about, oh, Lindemans, that's cheap Australian garbage, trash, filth. I would never drink it. It tastes like glue and rubber and cardboard. It tastes like none of those things. It tastes like goodness to me. And I drank like this much wine every day, like 3 ounces. I'm not a wine connoisseur. I don't know about wine. I'm like Paulie in Goodfellas. The only thing I know about wine is you get a menu and you order it. You know what I'm saying? So that's like my level of expertise. I try it and I drink it and I tell you what I think. So tastes good. I mean, well, And like my friend Paul always says, why do people have to be an expert to give you a score on beer? They could taste it and just tell you if they like it and if it's good or if there's something wrong with it. I mean, people can kind of do that, you know. He talks to me all about once a week. So he was saying, why do you have to be an expert? You could just try it. I say, exactly. You could tell quality stuff from poor quality just by trying it. But you would figure if a person drank enough beer over 23 years like I did, you would start to get a handle on like the really good stuff and the bad stuff and whatnot. So and I was thinking about Syria. I always track the Syrian civil war map. I've been looking at it for 4 years, something like that. Now there was one, it never works anymore because I think they're trying to get you to buy something. I'm not buying anything. I'm not paying to look at a map of Syria, but there's a good color-coded map. I'm looking on syria.live.uamap.com. Maybe I could do a screen share and show you the good progress. See if I can find that. I don't really know how to use this new live chat. On the old Google Hangouts, it had a little thing that said click screen share. I don't see that. I mean, this is so, I don't know what, I don't see, I see participants, which is me, pop out chat, and toggle time stats. No useful features. Let me look around. I don't see any useful features. I see nothing. I see a microphone icon showing the level of volume, which the green dots, it's 6 dots, and then the green goes down, like on a stereo system if you get louder. And then there's the live thing here. I'm live. It's been on 12 minutes, 2 seconds. Number of people watching 2, thumbs up 2. So that's all it shows, but it doesn't help me. But if you look at a map of Syria on your own, you'll see that it's not a huge country, probably about the size of Georgia. Guess I think I'm right. Like it's bigger than Georgia, but it's not as big as Texas. And so they're showing, okay, I agree. They're showing the Israeli occupied section, which they actually annexed. They say it's part of Israel. Syria would disagree. The National Geographic magazine used to say, we're going to show maps as they are, not as people want them to be. And they would show part of Israel. But then later, National Geographic magazine became very political and very left-wing liberal. And then they started showing maps according to what they wanted you to see or what they wanted to believe. And it became a very horrible magazine and organization. And I quit in 2017. I'm like, took my membership card, threw it in the trash, and I quit. They kept harassing me for a while. You can join back up and get the magazine. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I don't want to read about, it's National Geographic magazine, but they would turn into National Transgender magazine, National Global Warming magazine, National Gun Violence magazine, whatever you know the topics, think of any of them, and they would have an article about it. And I'm like, what does this have to do with geography? It has nothing to do with it. It just has to do with promotion, and they're in the schools a lot. Okay, so let's look at the map. The map is looking really good these days. We got the Syrian Arab Republic controlling most of the country. There are some ISIS-controlled areas, unfortunately. There's a U.S.-controlled area, which I'm trying to figure out why. Oh, whoops, hit the wrong. And Trump has made some good effort. Like they've been jumping on his case for pulling troops out of Syria. So-called didn't really do that. So the Democratic Party, who is anti-war / pro-war, at the same time, can you imagine that? It's a party that is pro-war and anti-war at the same time. And they've always been that way. they're saying, oh, he's bad. He's abandoning our allies. And then in 1975, when the U.S. pulled out of Vietnam, they said, oh, well, who cares? So what? So you say, well, how could you be anti-war and pro-war at the same time? Simple, because you're anti-war when it suits your party's goal, which is to be in power, and you're pro-war when it suits your party's goal, which is to be in power. Now, some people tell me, you Republicans are all the same. Well, I'm not a Republican. I am a Democrat, but I'm a traditional Democrat. And people say, well, how could you be part of such a terrible party? Why would you join such a terrible party? And I said, look at it more of me infiltrating the party, okay? They can't stop me going for meetings. They can't stop me from being involved in the apparatus if I want to be. So, plus, at least the Democratic Party has good roots. The tree itself is rotted and it's very infested with termites, red termites. You say red termites. What is a red termite? They have a hammer and sickle on them. That's how you can tell, like a black widow has that hourglass. And they're all around. But the Republican Party doesn't have good roots. Its roots are bad. So I felt like, I kept saying that party always loses. Why do they always lose? They say we're conservative, but they never win generally. And I said, oh, their roots are bad. So it's like it started with a bad premise. You know what I'm saying? So the party itself, which was founded in the 1850s, but really longer ago than that, really started with Alexander Hamilton in the 1780s. The roots are bad. So you would figure that the outcome is never going to be too good if the roots are bad. Now, Trump, you say, well, Trump's a Republican. He won. Well, he's not a true Republican. He's a real maverick, unlike John McCain, who wasn't a maverick, unless you thought. I guess he was, because he would always vote liberal. He was a Democrat he was a liberal Democrat who posed himself as I don't know what he posed himself as. I always called him Insane McCain. He was like a madman, like crazy. He was like that senator, that congressman in the dead zone. Stilson. I used to always think that McCain was like Stilson in the dead zone. The missiles are flying. Hallelujah. I said, that's McCain or Hillary Clinton. But you say, what do you mean? Somebody that would start World War II just to start it? Exactly. Like to see what it would be like. All right. So what we're looking at on the map. Well, I was confident in Syria ever since Barack Obama did his stand down, because remember, he was hot to attack Syria after the alleged chemical gas attack. Probably a false flag operation by the rebels to get the USA involved. But I was so angry at Obama and Clinton because they were such a terrible administration, attacking Libya, starting trouble in Egypt, attacking Syria, getting involved in Yemen. And I always talk to these liberal Democrats and they never heard of that. They don't know anything about it. They look at me with a blank stare like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, you don't know anything, so how could you talk about it? You just know you hate Trump and you loved Obama. And I know why you loved him. It's an obvious reason. I mean, we all know it's not complicated. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he did. It didn't matter what he did. You're going to love him. Even if what he did was horrendous, being a pro-war president. But I was so confident after he was going to start the big war and he was trying to pull a George W. Bush. And then the Congress voted against him, remember? And then because the people of the United States were saying, not another Iraq. And even more so when the Russian Marines showed up at the, was that Tartus Air Base, naval base, the only Russian overseas naval base. When the Russian Marines started arriving and all the Russian assets, I said, well, that's it. They're not going to attack Russia. They can talk big. They'll attack Bashar al-Assad, a weak country. You know, the United States is going to attack a weak country like Syria. They can't fight back. They're not going to attack Russia, you know. And Putin had them all landed there, and I was like, good, he's coming to save Syria. And Obama was saying, well, blah, 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 we're going to do something else. I was like, yeah, you know you're going to do something else. You know that's not going to happen. Like when Russia sent the troops into Serbia in 1999. Remember, the United States was trying to decimate, United States and NATO, their tag-along allies, were trying to decimate Serbia. And Bill Clinton was all, you know, so arrogant and bloodthirsty and all that. And then the Russians showed up at the airport, and Bill Clinton backed down. He was like, I was like, yeah, you're going to back down. You'll bomb Serbia because they can't fight back. But you're not going to bomb Russia because they can fight back, and they will fight back. And like Putin said, we got submarines right off the U.S. coast with nuclear missiles. We'll use them too. We don't want to use them, but we will. And they're all targeted. New Orleans, Jacksonville, Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, Omaha, Nebraska, Dallas, Texas, Houston. You do whatever you want to do. We'll do what we want to do. We don't want it, but we can do it. And we got all these new planes and everything. So that's what Putin was saying. We're not some throw around country. You could bomb Iraq. You could bomb Syria. You could bomb Libya. You could bomb Panama in 1989. All these little 2-bit countries that got no way to defend themselves. But you're not going to do that to us. You want to put submarines and Navy ships right on our border? We're going to put them right on your border. Simple. Like in 1962. You want to put nuclear missiles in Turkey 1 mile from the Soviet border? We're going to put nuclear missiles in Cuba 90 miles from Florida. Now, how you like that? And Kennedy said, well, I don't like that. I'm mad. And so Khrushchev said, well, hell, you think we weren't mad? So then they had, you know, Kennedy did his publicity stunt and said, oh, I made him stand down, you know. It was all lies. It was a deal. And then that hurt Kennedy's reputation later when it came out in the media that it was all a sham. Like, he wanted to portray like, I made Russia back down. I showed the Soviet Union what was up. But then when the public found out that they made a deal, then they said, oh, you know, Kennedy ain't so tough, you know. But so look at this map. You got all the rebels bottled up in the northwest of Syria. And just today, they give live updates. That's what's so good about the map. Russian warplanes targeted the village of Tataya in the southern countryside of Idlib. Raid by Russian warplanes with missiles targeting towns of Kaffa, Sinja, Sinna, and Nakir in the southern countryside of Idlib. Warplanes targeted hills of Al-Kabina in the northern countryside of Latakia with airstrikes. Syrian Su-24 warplanes targeted with missiles the town of Ajanudia in western Idlib. Warplanes renewed bombardment of Jisr al-Shughur and its countryside. Pro-Assad forces target with heavy artillery the Lerman area of the northern Aleppo countryside. So they're just closing in. You see, if you notice this map over the months, that pocket it's slowly closing because the Russians and Syria are just slowly clamping down and wiping out these rebels. Now you say, oh, you sound like you're celebrating. You're supposed to be anti-war. You got to understand the context of it. Syria had internal problems. We all know that. But in 2011, they got much worse because of interference of the United States. The United States, remember, Obama and Clinton, all you peace lovers who seem to have a myopic view of the world. Don't forget, they exacerbated it into a civil war. The United States invaded Syria. Remember, the United States invaded Syria by sending troops on the ground. Were they ever invited into Syria by their government? No, they weren't. They just entered illegally. That violates the UN Charter and everything else. arming rebels. See what happens when you arm a country's enemies? That makes you that country's enemy. Okay. I don't know why people have a limited intellect when it comes to this. If you and your friend are fighting and I say, I'm neutral, I'm not involved, or you and an enemy are fighting, maybe you and your friend became enemies. You know what I'm saying? So y'all are fighting with knives. And I tell the other guy, here's a bigger knife and a gun. You might take it that I'm not neutral because I'm arming one side in the fight. So you might resent that. You know what I'm saying? So Syria resented that the U.S. was helping arm rebels, so-called freedom fighters. And then the liberal media, MSNBC, CNN, and even Fox, because they're Trotskyite faction, they say, oh, yeah, they're so good. The Syrian Freedom Coalition, all this. And Bashar al-Assad is a dictator, as though that's any concern of the United States. Like, do you ever recall Syria demanding that the United States form a certain type of government? I don't. And actually, they never did. Then Russia came to the rescue, you see. And so that's why I'm saying they're the defenders winning the war. So yeah, we would applaud that if a country fights back against aggression, they could win. We're anti-war. You have a right to self-defense. That goes along with libertarian principles. You know, libertarian principles, you have a right to defend yourself. Of course, there's the Kurdish situation with Turkey and all of that. That's another war. It's sort of like a separate conflict, actually. And that goes back to the totally botched imperialism of the Versailles Treaty of 1919, but that's a different story. That goes way back. Not to say this doesn't, it does too, but that specifically goes back to that. So naturally, the Syrians would be pro-Russian because Russia's there to assist them against an attack. Okay. Makes sense to me. It ought to make sense to you. It's sensible. And you could talk about all these wars. This is not a new thing. This did not start last month. This did not start 10 years ago. This did not start 20 years ago. You could just look at World War II. We're celebrating, if you want to call it celebrating. I should not use that term. Let's call it, well, some people are. Let's call it recognizing or memorializing the 75th anniversary of 1944, coming up with the Battle of the Bulge, the Ardennes Offensive, Autumn Mist, Watch on the Rhine, 1944, December 1944. So, and there's still a lot of people alive from that war, veterans. They're in their 90s now. They're all 10 years from now, there won't be any of them left, I suppose. But I can remember as a kid when they had World War II veterans that were still in their 40s. True story. I can remember guys that were in World War II that were like 48 years old. And you would say, well, oh, okay. You know, like it wasn't, they weren't old. I remember going to the 40th anniversary of the end of the war in Europe. There was a big conference at the University of New Orleans, and they had a lot of veterans there, and they were all like 58, 60, 58. And I'll say, now they're all like with canes and old and in wheelchairs. So I say, boy, it's strange how time changes, you know, because I can remember there were just people at work, people teaching high school, people at the grocery store that were 58 years old. Now we're in World War II. I was in the Battle of the Bulge, baby. That was a comment one of the veterans made. Some young guys were teasing him because he was sort of effeminate. This is a story from Jefferson Parish. They were teasing this guy. Yeah, you little fruit, you fairy, and all this kind of ugly stuff. And he was saying, how old are you? I'm 20. You know, so then they left him alone. Oh, he was in the war. You say, well, he's bragging on his service. No, he wasn't bragging. He was just trying to eat at McDonald's, and they were bothering him. They were harassing him. But maybe they took it as, this might be a guy not to mess with, you know, because he was like 48 at the time. Like, you might be traumatized from the war. You might find yourself in a mistake. You might be messing with the wrong guy. But anyway, so but you think about World War II. I mean, it's so incredible that people are they have such a aberrant understanding of World War II. That's the big, like my friend Paul always says, that's the key. He used to be on beer hangouts with us all the time. He said, that's the key. That's the key. World War II is the key. It's the key to everything happening now. I said, well, there's no doubt about that. You could really go back to World War I because they're the same war, really. It's really, in reality, it's the World War Part 1, the World War Part 2, and the World War Part 3, which is now what we have now, the Cold War, U.S. versus Russia since 1944. That's really how you have to look at it. The World War Part 1, they took a break, sort of like a football game, have halftime, and then the second round. But it goes back to that. Everything on the table now goes back to that. You can't deny it. And the policy is the same. The U.S. policy is the same, to go out and pick sides and start trouble. I'm sorry. That might sound terrible, but it's the truth. And the truth hurts. But we have to understand the truth, and we must learn. We have to learn. The Bible says that. What it was, that St. Paul? I will not have you be ignorant. Don't be ignorant. There's no benefit to being ignorant. There's no benefit to hiding in the sand and not facing reality. There's no benefit to that. There is some great benefit to spreading positive propaganda, positive ideas, because you can go to any baseball or football game and it's all the same. You know what you're going to see. It's sort of like the cult of militarism, but you could battle that. Has Trump pulled the troops out of Syria completely? No. Does he need to do it? Yeah, he's taken half measures. That's not satisfactory. I'm not satisfied. I'm irritated, really. But when the Democrats, you have another option, total engagement. Except for Tulsi Gabbard. They're picking on her, plotting against her. But all the other Democratic candidates, that's your choice. You got Trump, who could slowly disengage from these world conflicts. It seems to be that's his goal. He has to be very careful. And that's why the deep state and the establishment hates his guts. This was obvious since August of 2015. Or you can vote for the Democrats, the liberal Democrats, and you have a possibility of war with Trump. We can't deny that. So you got war possible. I said this in 2016. You have two choices. You have war possible or war guaranteed. With Clinton, you had a guarantee of warfare, foreign conflict, and perhaps World War III with Russia, because you're dealing with a real, true psychopath. And with these liberal Democrats you have now running, I'm sorry to say, you have a guarantee of conflict. Now, if you like foreign entanglements and adventurism, militarism, imperialism, and warfare, this is your party, because that's what you're going to get. I'll be back in a few minutes with eggnog.